What's going on, guys? My name is Andrew Sarar, and welcome back to my ultimate guide to mastering bass fishing. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about preparation for fishing tournaments. Now, I do want to preface that this information as well can be used to just going out to have fun and go catch some fish. The reason I am saying it is tournament preparation, though, is because a lot of the concepts I'm going to be talking about are tailored towards more competitive styles of fishing than just going out having a good time and trying to catch a few fish. So I'm going to get into this right away with a piece of information that I want you to know right off the bat. The best type of tournament preparation is getting on the water and actually pre-fishing. You can go through every single piece of fishing material on the internet. You can go look at past tournaments. You can look at every single piece of information that's out there, but nothing in this world is going to be actually going out to the lake you're going to be fishing and pre-fish it before the tournament to see what conditions and the lake is actually like. But as a tournament angler who also works a full-time job and does a lot of other things on the side, I understand how a lot of times pre-fishing is not possible. So I wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks to actually help you succeed in your tournament fishing or in just your fun fishing if you don't have time to actually go out and figure out where those fish are. So the number one thing I want you guys to think about while prepping for a tournament is time of year. Now, I do know I went over this in a past episode of the series. If you haven't watched that yet, I suggest you go back and do watch it. It is about bass migration patterns throughout the year, but depending on the time of the year, obviously those fish are going to be set up different. They're going to be on different structure, going after different types of prey. So understanding that and understanding the time of year you're going to be going to your tournament is going to help you at least have a basis for where you're going to be catching these fish. Now, the second thing I want you guys thinking about is the lake you're fishing itself. Every single lake you go to is going to be different. So I want you to be thinking about what type of bass are in there. Is it just largemouth? Is it a mixture of largemouth, spotted bass, and smallmouth bass? I want you to understand what type of fish are there. I also want you to understand what type of bait is in there. What are these fish eating? Are they eating bluegill? Are they eating small silver sides and threadfin shad? Are they eating bigger gizzard shad? Are they eating crawdads? There are so many different types of prey in the water that understanding what these fish are going to be eating is going to help you narrow down those baits to actually mimic the type of prey that's in the lake. I also want you guys to think about what structure there is in that lake. Does the lake have a lot of shoreline structure? You know, grass lines, tule edges, trees, docks. Does it have a lot of offshore structure, like deep humps or deep island tops? Does it have a lot of deep rock structures? Does it have ledges? Because you know, there's some baits that are going to work better around grass. There's some baits that are going to work better around rock, and vice versa. So now you have gone over the three biggest factors, in my opinion, for giving yourself a basis to go fishing. We know what time of the year it is. We know the lake itself. We know what type of prey is in that lake, and we know what type of structure is in that lake. Using just those pieces of information, we can now come up with a pretty solid plan and a pretty solid arsenal of baits to actually go out and catch fish. But now comes what, in my opinion, is the harder part of planning for a fishing trip, and that's finding spots to actually go out and fish. So for this, we're actually going to slide over to the computer, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit about Google Earth and how I use it to help me with fishing. Let's go. All right, guys. So this right here is Google Earth. I'm sure you guys have seen Google Earth one time or another for whatever reason it might be. But the reason I want to show you guys this today is because this is going to be a great tool for you guys to help you find those spots to start out with for your day on the water. So when I'm looking at Google Maps, the things that I'm looking for are potential areas that I can go fish. And things that I try and look for are long main lake points, because main lake points seem to be one of the bigger areas that fish congregate throughout the entire year. Now, I pulled up a lake that is actually going to be a lake I'm fishing at next month for a tournament. So I figured this would be a perfect time for me to kind of show you what's going through my head when I'm looking at this lake. So when I pull up Google Earth, the big thing that I'm looking for is different types of areas that would be good for me to fish. And areas that I'm looking for are things like main lake points that have a very defined tapering point out here. If you'll also notice too, there seems to be a bit of an island top over here. And I also noticed on this lake that there's actually a river going up here as well. So I might think about fishing some of these cuts and points out off of the main river, because a lot of times those fish will get up into the river, and when guys aren't catching them in the main lake, a lot of the guys will be catching them up in the river instead. But the biggest key thing is I am looking for those specific spots that I want to start fishing when I go out there. I don't want to just launch from up here and have no idea what I'm going to be fishing throughout this whole lake. And who knows, maybe those spots aren't going to pan out, and honestly, half the time they probably don't. But at least it's a basis for you to go off of. And then once you go out and actually start fishing those areas and you start getting bites, then the bites will help you kind of put together a plan based off where those fish are actually eating. There's a lot of good spots on this lake, though, that I'm noticing from points like this where you can see that shallow water comes all the way out, and a lot of those shallow water areas are going to be huge potentially for those fish that are either coming up to get access to some of the shallows, or they're going down deep. This is easy deep water access. And then, as I said before too, going up the river, a lot of these big coves, a lot of these big cuts, but also some island tops are going to be huge areas to actually get a congregation of fish out here. I mean, you can even see a bass boat right there fishing off of this secondary point. It's kind of crazy because all these areas that you can see these people fishing, for one reason or another, they're fishing it. This guy seems to be fishing some fallen trees. Those look like trees that are all fallen in the water, and those make for perfect shoreline structure. All right, so let's head back so I can wrap up this video for you guys. All right, so now that you guys have a pretty good idea of the steps that I take when I'm prepping for a fishing trip or fishing tournament, now let's put it all together really quick. So, you know what time of the year it is, you have determined what lake you're fishing, obviously, and you have looked at the type of forage that's in the lake, the type of bass that are in the lake, and the type of structure that is in the lake. All these factors have now narrowed down your bait selection for your fishing trip. You've now gone onto Google Maps, you understand where these fish should be set up for the time of the year, and now you've determined a couple spots on the lake that look like perfect spots for those fish to set up. So now you should be coming up with a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C to actually go out and catch these fish. So, as an example, let's go through that lake that I was just showing you guys on Google Earth. This tournament is in a month, but I can already make some plans knowing all these factors I just talked about. So I am going to Pardee Reservoir in the middle of June. I know there are spotted bass and largemouth bass in there. The forage in that lake is crawdads, bluegill, and threadfin shad. So right off the bat, I am already thinking some good white or black top waters depending on water clarity. I'm also thinking of looking for deeper structure like those deeper points or maybe some deep rock piles or humps. And in those areas I can slow down with some finesse rigs like jigs, drop shots, you name it. And so when I looked back at Google Earth, maybe there's a couple flats that I could go fish some top waters on, and then I could mark a couple points like that long tapering point I was talking about earlier, and I could utilize that as some of the first spots that I go fish so that I have the best opportunity for success during the summer. Then depending on where I get bites and what I get bites on, I can then put together a pattern and actually figure out how to catch these fish consistently and mimic whatever I'm doing on different parts of the lake, and hopefully that'll allow me to catch some bigger, a much larger caliber fish. Now I know in practice that actually putting together the puzzle can seem dang near impossible, but I promise you that the more experience you get out there, the easier it will become to go through this process and actually find much more consistent success. So if you guys do have any questions about preparation or any specific questions about fishing, things you might like to see in this series, please leave it down in the comments below. But that is all I have for you guys in this episode of the Ultimate Guide to Mastering Bass Fishing. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have not already, please hit that sub button so you don't miss new episodes of the series. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.